four guys. 1974, I guess this would be, 73 or 74. I was 19 years old, and we were driving along some highway on the way out to the end of Long Island, smoking marijuana, and got lost. And so we pulled over by the side of the road to look at a map to figure out where we were going. And while we were looking at the map, kind of without us being very conscious of it, a police car pulled up alongside us. And there was a rap on the window, and I wasn't driving, but I was sitting in the front seat next to the driver, and so the window went down. Officer said, "Can we help you?" And we said, no, we're fine, we're doing just fine. But I think a cloud of marijuana wafted out the window, and really within seconds we were out, spread-eagled against the back of the car or the fence by the side of the road, and we were carted off to Hopog County Jail, Suffolk County Jail, where we spent the night in jail waiting arraignment the next day on alleged possession of controlled substances of various kinds, because among the things in the trunk of the car, unbeknownst to me, was a variety of tea, real tea, and pinoli nuts, which looked like pills to these 25-year-old Suffolk County residents. This was at the height of the Rockefeller drug law, the beginning of the Rockefeller drug laws, and I have to back up a little bit and say that I was then living in a fraternity. Well, I have to admit, I was the president of my fraternity at Columbia University by that time, living in New York City. I guess I skipped that vital piece of information. And in the time of which we speak, the New York City police were running an undercover operation in the fraternities along Fraternity Row at Columbia. This was the low point in fraternity life at Columbia, in American life generally, 1974. Otherwise, why would I ever have become the president of a fraternity? It was a lot of opportunity. And some of my colleagues in Pamfratria, the Association of Fraternity Presidents, actually had been arrested and did serious time, actually, under the Rockefeller drug laws. So it was a scary time. So we spent a night in jail. I was already fairly politically active. I was involved in the ACLU as a student and so on. So, I was not really like a St. Paul on the road to Damascus experience exactly, but it was a radicalizing experience in many respects, because of the what was driven home to me very clearly was that everybody else in the prison and carted along to arraignment with us was black. We were long-haired, hippie-type people. We were disfavored by the law. And the cops, while not spectacularly brutal, were casually brutal. And so, and in all my interactions with police since, I've never quite, forgotten what it was like to be on the other end of the nightstick. So, we were arrested. It so happened, to my great good fortune, that one of the previous presidents of my fraternity was, by that time, a very successful drug lawyer, and David Michaels, who represented a lot of drug offenders. There's a constituency here. And anyway, so I called up Dave, and he came out and helped with the arraignment, and he gave me a very good break on the legal stuff, because I wasn't really wild about asking my parents for money to help with this. I was teaching nursery school at the time, and I was actually, by the standards of that time, kind of independently wealthy. Anyway, I guess I'm going on a little too long. But it's very entertaining, isn't it? So, in any event, in a few months the charges were adjourned in contemplation of dismissal and eventually dismissed, and I am the proud possessor of my arrest record and mug shots, which they tell me I have the only copy in the world of. Right. So, in any event, and some of my kids get a lot of kick out of it. We'll get to the kid part of it in a minute. Just a couple of things to be said in connection with this before I get a little bit to my role as a son and as a father on these issues. A very bizarre thing happened when I got back to the fraternity room after getting out of jail, which is that I called up a friend of mine to tell him what had happened to me. And we were talking, and he said to me over the course of the conversation, well, you don't really think that you're going to really be you're not going to go to jail? Do you think you really go to jail? And I said, I don't know, I don't think so. I said, you know, we did have some dope, we did have some marijuana, but, you know, it was pine nuts, tea. I really don't think eventually we'll really be in serious trouble. But in fact, we were smoking dope. And I think we'll be okay, I think we'll get off. And a voice cut into the telephone line and said, not with this tape, you won't. And that was a little scary. So I hung up the phone immediately. Got out my pipe, my rolling papers, my little film canister of marijuana, ran down to the basement of the fraternity, unloosened a brick from the wall, put it all behind the brick, and went upstairs and waited for the cops to come and arrest me again, which they never did. So I don't know. I mean, at the time, my theory was that the undercover operation on the block, you know, was somehow I had tapped into that. But that seemed a little stupid to think that, you know, it was kind of unprofessional undercover behavior to do that. It sounds to me like somebody, you know, happened to do the party line and, you know, thought they would have some fun with me. But it shook me up a little bit. And I have to mention it because it's one of the reasons why, in fact, I haven't, for the last 25 years or so, smoked marijuana. It was kind of an unsettling experience. So Scotch is now my drug of choice, but not because I regret my youthful drug use, but because I was kind of a little electroshocked out of it. In any event, a couple, you go back and look under the brick, right? Exactly. So now my father and my mother, to some extent, were aware that I smoked marijuana. I don't remember having any conversations with them about it, I have to say. That's part of what happens to you when you're 45 years old. I don't remember any of these conversations, but they had an awareness of it, and it must have come up. And I don't remember them ever saying anything to me about it, because they were of a generation which, or at least of a generation and an upbringing in a small New England town, they knew nothing from marijuana or any other form of drugs. And they were scared, like a lot of parents at the time. But as I look back on it, they were actually very reasonable about it. They knew something was going on. They also knew that I drank. You know, that I illegally. I mean, even though the drinking age was only 18 at that time, I did plenty of drinking when I was 15 and 16 and 17. And the combination of drinking and dope smoking, because I got my driver's license when I was 16. And when I look back on it, the thing that's most remarkable to me is that I survived my adolescence. That many times I drove maybe 85 miles an hour while drunk and stoned on Route 95 from London, Connecticut to Westerly, Rhode Island. I don't know how I managed, but I did somehow. Because when you're an adolescent, you think you're immortal and that you're going to live forever. You don't really, have any sense of any danger from any corner. But anyway, my parents must have been aware of it. And when I called. I never tend to tell my parents about the arrest until it was over, but I had to pay another installment, all of like $250 to Dave Michael. And I went to cash in my Knights of Columbus insurance policy that my father had taken out for me when I was born, and found to my surprise that he had cashed it out already. And so I felt a little annoyed at that, and I felt that he should help pay for my legal defense. So I called him up and I told him, and he sent me a check for $250. And so that's how I told him about it. As I got older and had kids of my own, if I had wanted to conceal my youthful drug use, I wouldn't have been very successful in doing so, because my father in particular, and also my mother, liked regaling my children with stories of my drug use. The time you were so stoned when you got off the Amtrak train and so on and so forth. And it was kind of interesting because, I never made any effort to deny this. My kids were kind of amused by it. When they began to hear about it, they were very young. And then they become teenagers. And I never thought much about it at the time, but thinking about today's topic and talking about being a parent and dealing with drugs with your kids, I was actually moved to reflect that my own parents were very good about the issue, even though they had nothing in their particular background